Let's start it. I am here today with Father Rafael Garcia from Sacred Heart Church in El Paso, Texas, and I greatly appreciate you taking your time, and I just would love to hear about the awareness, the fundraising, so thank you.
You're very welcome, yes.
So Father Garcia, when and where were you born? I know some people don't like
I
to say
was
it.
born in Havana, or here it says Havana, it's actually in Spanish, it's La Habana, Cuba, country of Cuba. So I was born there, and I lived there in Cuba until age 9 when we left as refugees.
Was it hard to make that trip?
Well, being 9 years old, it was sort of whatever you could soak in at that age. But yeah, I remember it was still very difficult because we went to Miami. I didn't speak English. We didn't have any resources. Like we went and we have some distant relatives in Miami who would help us first. But it was like going, we did not have like a real established either home or anything there. It was just going like most migrants we see today, going into difficult situations. So it was, it was really an adjustment. It took me a while to just kind of get adjusted to that reality. Yes.
Oh wow. Oh man, I can't imagine. Was it really easy to be able to get
Well, my mother spoke English.
Okay.
And then I remember that we got here in March of 1962, and I was put in a school that was only English, and it was really traumatic because I didn't understand anything that was going on. So the next year they started a program for Cuban refugees, this is all beginning. This is the time when the Cuban refugee flow was growing. So in the second year that I was here in Miami, they started a bilingual program, and that really helped. By the following school year, I was in an English class. So at that age, 1 year of schooling really got me going in English. It was really good.
And so you were able to pick up the English language in a year.
Yeah, because I know the following year, fourth grade, I remember fourth grade was a good year. And so I think I was already managing the language well by then.
Oh wow. So have you always had the Jesuit Catholic as your main home front as religion wise?
Well, actually, yeah, my family's Catholic, we grew up Catholic. I was not really that involved in the church until, say, like high school.
Okay.
What happened was that I was in one of these things that God provides, but I was already working in an architect's office. I studied architecture, that was my first profession. So I was working in an architect's office through high school and then through college as well. So when I finished high school, the architect that I was working for, he and the engineers, it was very impressive. All of them were part of this Catholic group, Christian Life Community group, and they invited me to participate. So I went, and I really liked it. There was all of these people that were professionals, and so I made a retreat with a group, and my life really began to revolve around that a lot, socially and of course religiously. And so that's where I first met the Jesuits. And but I was still in studies. I went to University of Miami for my final degree in architecture. I was working with architects, and then the let's say the call to become a Jesuit or a priest happened later, several years later. So yeah, in that sense, I started with this Catholic group, and that led me. I think God would use that to lead me to a final call to be a priest.
Oh, that's amazing. I love hearing about the call. It's always one of my favorite stories. Some people get it in a dream. Some people have like this overwhelming feeling of going, I need to do something more.
Yeah.
So thank you
No,
for
I just felt that very clearly. We're actually in a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, to the Israel, Palestine, and we were there. And the fact that I was able to go was sort of miraculous too, because I was working. At that time I was already working on my own as an architect, and trips to Holy Land were not cheap, but that summer I had enough money, and the project that I was working on suddenly was interrupted because the owners changed sites. So it was like, there's nothing really to do for the next few weeks. So then this trip was available, and I said, well, I'll go this year because I haven't been wanting to go, and I had never been able to go. And then it was in that trip that I particularly remember exactly where I was, where I just felt something very clear inside of me of God calling me to be a priest. So it was just amazing. And then later I went to a retreat. Later meaning several months later, I went to a retreat, and the same thing, I felt it confirmed, and that's when I made the move to enter the Jesuit order.
Oh, wow.
So
I know there's a lot of schooling involved with that. So you finished your architect school and you went to, is there a separate church or a separate school regarding to become a minister?
When I was studying architecture, which is regular, I was not connected with the Jesuits. I was at community college and the University of Miami. Later, when we enter the Jesuits, we have a formation program which varies according to, if you enter with a degree, it already shortens, let's say, the process a little bit. If some of the people, some of the young guys enter out of high school, so they need to get a college degree first. So after studying architecture and so on, then years later, I have to go back to Loyola University in New Orleans to do 2 years of philosophy. I already had a degree, so I did a degree. And then you do theology, where you get a master's in theology. And that happened in mainly, most of it was in Toronto, Canada. The Jesuits, we have a theology school there. So I was in Canada for 3 years, and then 1 year in Spain. So that was my 4 years of theology studies.
So it really was beneficial that you were bilingual.
I actually chose Spain. I'm the one, because I could have done it all in the US or Canada, but I had wanted to do something in Spanish as far as, formation and studies and so on. And so I was able to go 1 year to Spain, my final year.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So tell me a little bit about the Sacred Heart Church. I know it was founded in 1896? 93, okay. I was off by 3 years, I'm so sorry. And it's just celebrated almost 127 years, if I'm correct on that?
It's now in 2023, it'll be 130 years.
Oh, wow. Next year,
yeah,
that's right.
It'll be 130 years since the beginning of the church. Now the school building, the first floor of the school building was 1892, so it's actually celebrating the school, Sacred Heart School. Its original founding was 1892, so it will be 130 years old. Even though it's no longer a school, since 1970, it's no longer a Catholic school. We use it for other activities and classrooms for religious ed, adult education on Saturdays, and this church with the Immaculate Conception Church down the street from here are the two oldest Catholic churches in El Paso proper. There's some mission churches down in the lower valley, which you may be aware of, and in Juarez, the original churches that were built some centuries back. But as far as the beginning of the Catholic Church in the city of El Paso, Sacred Heart and Immaculate Conception were the first ones.
The concrete,
yes. Like the foundation.
The foundation, absolutely.
Yeah. This was a church for Mexican immigrants in the Segundo Barrio, which is where we're at, which has been a Mexican neighborhood since its founding. They're right next to the border, as you know, where we're at. And then Immaculate Conception was built for the Anglo community. So there was at that time, that was not unusual to have either national churches or by culture or whatever, so languages.
I've read the history through what Sacred Church has done. It offered schooling, it offered bilingual classes, it offered GED programs, even back when they first put those first stones down. So just the amount of community engagement that comes along with this.
Yeah, this church has always served people in the barrio during the Mexican persecution of the church. During the Mexican Revolution, the church actually became illegal. The Catholic Church was illegal in Mexico, which is kind of contradictory because it's such a Catholic country for decades, centuries. But so anyway, at the beginning of the 20th century, a lot of people would come here to mass because there was no masses in Juarez, because the church was not able to function. So this church served two nations, you could say, Juarez, which is Mexico, and El Paso. So it's a key church for many reasons. It's also the base of the Jesuit order, my order. So when after Father Pinto built the church, these two churches, Immaculate Conception, and this one, he built other churches that became also the core of the city. One of them is Guardian Angel Church, St. Ignatius, Holy Family. So those churches, and then he built one in Juarez too, Sacred Heart Church in Juarez, Sagrado Corazón in Juarez, Father Pinto. But then, besides Father Pinto, there were other Jesuits here. And this building we're actually sitting right now. The first floor of this building was built in 1898. And this is where the Jesuits lived and went out on mission bands on horseback. And they would go into West Texas and into southern New Mexico and into Silver City and down towards Chihuahua, towns in Chihuahua. So this was like the center of Catholic ministry, Catholic Church in El Paso, Juarez, in this general geographical area.
Oh, that's
before it became a diocese, it later became a Catholic diocese.
Okay.
It was at that time it was missionary territory. This was missionary territory, but later became a diocese with the first bishop and so on, and then it grew. And there's of course a lot of other churches now, but yeah, this church has very important religious, historical significance. Yeah, so that's why we value it so much, and we want to restore it.
Oh, absolutely.
We'd be very ashamed if it's just. Not that it's going to collapse, because the structure is fine, but it needs a lot of work. The bricks need.
It needs some extra heart.
Exactly. It's been, it's an old building.
Exactly.
And it's always been a poor community. It's always been a poor community at the bottom. So it's not like some churches that have a big, let's say, a large fund for, maintenance and repairs and all that. We just sort of sometimes have to repair things. Let's do the best we can, but we can't really do major repairs because we don't have the funds. So it's always been, let's say, minimally kept because we don't have the resources to, like, for example, the church, one of the things we want to do, even though, and the good thing is now with the energy efficient systems, it won't be that problem, but we still have the evaporative coolers, the swamp coolers in the church.
Yes.
And those are, first of all, they're noisy, but also when it's hot and humid, they don't work at all, really don't do much good. So one of the reasons those were put in is because they were cheap first, and then also they don't use as much electricity as the regular,
like the refrigerated air.
Yeah. So, but now I've been told by the engineers and so that they're very energy efficient. So it's not much different than what the swamp coolers use as electricity. So part of this program this process of fundraising is to change the air conditioning system, which will involve changing electrical systems and plumbing and many things. So yeah, there's been a lot of deferred maintenance here because of funding, basically.
Do you, because I know that you've been raising money, and I will definitely make sure that I leave the Sacred Heart Church .org at the bottom so that anybody that wants to donate, they can feel free to donate as they will. So you have had, it looks like you've had good donations. How close are you to hitting? Do you have a set goal, or is it just a continuous goal that needs to constantly be checked?
Yeah, it's still very much an uphill battle. The estimates that because we did some studies that we had to, for getting a major grant that we got from a foundation, we had to have what's called an architectural assessment of the buildings and what's needed, and make sure that there's no major repairs that need to be done or structural problems. So once we did that, and then we gave the input of what we need to do in the building, and would like to do in the buildings, the church itself is about $3 million for the restoration.
Oh my!
$3 million. And each of the adjacent buildings about $2 million.
Oh wow!
$2 million. So because again they're old buildings and they just need a lot of work. Now, what we're focusing on is the church only.
Okay.
Right now, that's phase one for that $3 million. And the best grant, or the only major grant that we have now, is from an organization, very prestigious organization out of Philadelphia called National Fund for Sacred Places. And they give to churches. They also gave a major grant to the National Cathedral in Washington, which is one of the best known churches in the United States. But they like, not only do they like our church, but they also like what we do, because part of their granting is, you know, what significance does this church have in the community? What's the track record it's had? So they read up, but we sent them information on the history of the church, what we're doing in the barrio presently, besides the religious, sacramental, religious services and sacraments and so on. We also have programs to help the community, like a food program. We also have adult education for
We're offering
Saturdays
GED.
for GED, citizenship, and so on. And then we're also involved, and as Jesuits, that's part of our mission, when we're somewhere, to also get involved in the community, to work for the rights of the people. So we're involved a lot with organizations that are trying to save the culture, the history of the neighborhoods, this barrio, or another one called the Duranguito, there's another one called Chihuahuita. They all have names of Mexican regions, because they're all the original people, and still many there that live are Mexican origin. Most of them are Duranguito, Chihuahuita, and Segundo Barrio. So that's part of our mission too, is to be a voice for the people that don't have a voice, and to try to save the history. So this organization, National Fund for Sacred Places, we got the maximum grant of $250,000.
Yay.
But there's a few footnotes. One of them is it's a 2-to-1 match, so we have to fundraise 2-to-1. In other words, for each dollar they give us, we have to come up with 2. So basically, we have to raise $500,000 to be able to access that grant.
Oh wow.
So that's why we have to get other grants and get the community involved. And so we're hoping we have a program to do that. Dr. Max Grossman is a co-chair with me on this committee, and we're looking at all sorts of things. We're also gonna get what's called the tax credits that go towards the construction cost.
Okay.
And since we're a church, we will sell those tax credits to corporations. It's a very complicated process, but we will get a few $100,000 from tax credits once we pay expenses that go with, first of all, getting the tax credits, a lot of paperwork, a lot of bureaucracy, and then you sell the tax credits to like a corporation or a bank or something at, for example, 93 cents to $1. So, but it's all a given. So even if we get 93 to $1, we didn't even have the dollar in the first place. So it's gonna be very helpful to get that, and then other donors and other grants, and so we're still in the beginning stages. You know, we still have to get the ball rolling some more. But
no pressure.
so I hope eventually, you know, if this presentation helps to get more fundraising, well, great, wonderful, thank be to God.
Yes.
Because it's a major campaign. It's a major campaign.
Lots of prayers and lots of help and lots of donations and everything like that. So,
with
so is this building considered as a National Historic Registry now? Because it has.
It will be, yeah, because it's and the whole district is a National Historic.
Good. So can you get additional funds from being a national registry?
No, actually the tax credits are connected with that, because it's a historic area, and so. It's more. We have to do some just regular fundraising with people, you know, institutions that want to support us, and more grants.
More grants. No. Yes. Yes. Oh, believe me, I understand that when it comes to getting grants and writing scholarships. I've done my share of writing tons of. Yes. So, well, you've definitely done a huge relationship with the community abroad and everything like that. Did you have any major issues during the pandemic? I know that everything was shut down.
Sure.
So just difficulties in general, how were you able to get the word out?
Well, what happened was that it affected the whole Catholic Church in the area, like throughout the nation, but there was a point where, you know, at first nobody really knew what COVID was, and there was no vaccines, and there were just all sorts of fears. So it came to the point where the church was basically closed. We had no there was no masses, except up to, there was one point where it was up to 10 persons total. So the priest and the lector, somebody to read, and so we did that for a while, and then we were videotaping the masses. That was popular then. Still our church is doing that on on Facebook Live, things of that nature. So it came to a point where there was really no one was able to come because we were actually close to the public. Religious ed, for example, really got pushed behind, but then we were doing it, the teachers were doing it, the catechists were doing it online on Google Classroom, but that required that the families have the equipment and somebody to also work with the kids. A lot of the families, because of their work schedule or sometimes even their own education, are not able to be like good mentors for their children. That happened too. That was a big crisis in the barrio because it also happened with the regular schooling. So often parents, they worked hard, they were not able, some of the parents here in this area, not all, but some of them, really never finished high school. So it is an impoverished area. It's one of the lowest income areas in the United States, the Segundo Barrio.
Yes.
So the crisis for the people here, including us, was when they went all on, online. Some people did not have the resources to follow up and be a tutor or be a teacher at home. And did they have the equipment? Well, they probably had a cell phone, and that's not as good as a computer.
Right.
So that happened. Now, one thing we're proud of, we never interrupted the food distribution program. We have on Friday.
Good.
We actually started doing it in the Padre Pinto Plaza outdoors. So people would come and they would line up, but it was all done outdoors. So we would prepare the bags, they would take the bags, but it was all done on the exterior because it was a lot safer with face masks as well.
Oh, that's good.
So it took and then also people back then were not coming to church. Of course, the donations to the church went down because most of our people normally give on Sunday, even though the amount of the collection offertory is low because of just the type of parish we are. But with no masses, there was no way to do that. Some people were very good about sending it by mail, but so the income really went down during that time. Still, a lot of parishioners have not come back. I think I'm not gonna say a lot, but it'd be hard to even give you a percentage, but there are people that have not come back since COVID. One of them is, I think, fear. Some of them because of, this is the bad reason. They've gotten used to watching things on TV. They haven't come back to the community, which is, it's really a problem because it's not the same to have a live community and to watch something on TV. The third one, which is really a very an unfortunate reality, but I think it's going to be resolved now. Here it's going to be resolved. Is that the city up till now they interrupted Sunday bus service. There was no Sunday bus service except the I don't know if you're familiar with the Brio lines, which are these faster buses that go on certain main highways like Alameda and up to the northeast on Dyer and then on Mesa Street. But not everybody can use those on Sunday because they're living in other parts, not on these particular lines.
Right.
But I've just heard that it's going to be restarted again now in early October. But many of our parishioners use bus; they don't have cars. And we have parishioners that do not live in the barrio, so they don't walk to church. They need to take the bus. So those people were actually deprived of being able to come to church, and that was really for them a loss, not able to come into the church. So we're happy that I've heard that the city's going to restart bus service finally.
Oh, that's good.
I'm not even sure why they stopped it in the first place because
budget cuts.
Because most people that are lower income, they depend on the buses.
Yes.
And not only to church, but if they work Monday through Friday, Wednesday, Saturday, that's a day where they want to go shopping or visit family. Well, if there's no buses, they can't really move. So that was another effect of COVID that's still affecting us. And we did have, several parishioners who were sick. At least I can think of out of the top of my head 4 people that I knew very well that died from COVID. Because
my husband's job, like 3 people passed, and he's an office of 15 people.
Wow.
So that's quite
quite a bit, and so we had to do several times where we had to stay at home, like all of us at home. And I actually started my college career right before COVID hit, and here am I trying to learn Spanish.
During COVID?
Yes.
But through Zoom, through the internet?
Yes, I passed. That's all that matters. I passed. But yeah, just learning and education, and just trying to and being. I was fortunate that my cousin was the first one that started with the Facebook and was able to get some type of service, because our church was kind of, they started, but it's almost like they started like after the fact. And my cousin was already on it going, hey, welcome Sunday service. And so it was nice to be able to get some service from somewhere. So I completely understand how
I think everybody's been affected by COVID in some way or another.
Yes.
Co-workers, family, all sorts of things. Yeah, yes.
And believe me, when they came out with a vaccine, I was probably first and second, third and fourth, fifth in line with me and all the kids, you know, especially when they came out with the ones for the 12 and up. I was like, okay, it's your turn. I'm looking at your birthday.
Of course. Yes.
And then even they got the new one out with Be Power Flu through the city, that you can even get the new Omicron variant. So I've got booster number 4, and it's free.
Booster 4 or 3? Booster 4?
Booster 4.
Because I already knew.
It's yes, and it's located through different. I will make sure to leave the thing down on the site as well, so that if anybody wants to get their, it's free through the city. They've got the flu shot, the Omicron variant, the brand new booster that just came out, and you've only had to have your 3rd booster at least 5 months.
Okay.
So yeah, I went ahead, you know, with the kids like mine that, you know, bringing home the sniffles and sneezes and everything. It's I don't want them getting sick. So, is there anything that you could think of to expand out, or is there anything that you think you could have done differently regarding
the COVID?
Yeah, COVID, or in general, just getting the word out? I mean, do you think it sounds like to me you were able to do an amazing job.
Yes, we did what we could. What's unique about the community in this area is that they don't, they're not like such technologically savvy as far as like saying, well, we'll do things on an app, or we'll give you information on, you know, people are more by word of mouth, or they come directly. Now that their kids probably would, but I think we basically, you know, word got out of what was available, and like I said, the food program where we have 100 families that come each Friday, 100 one Friday, and then the next Friday it's another 100, and so they come in 2 cycles. Like there's two groups, and that number grew during COVID, and we're still helping people, but they continued to come, and they knew when their time would come, so they knew, and so. I mean, I think if you look back, you always say, well, we could have maybe done this differently, but I think we did the best we can. A lot of the parents, like we offered religious ed on Google Classroom and so on, but some people did not want it or did not like it, and so it was just, you could only do the best you can, you know. But, so that's, yeah. We also always would promote about getting vaccinated and you know, being careful. We still, I mean, some people may pretty soon change, but we still ask people to wear their mask, you know, just for their own safety. And so and there was a time when, you know, it was really hard, where after each service, between each of the masses, we'd have to wipe each of the pews where people sat and put their hands with, you know, disinfectant.
Oh yes,
There was
and
a
the
time when that
wonderful.
was required.
Yeah, my hands are.
No, not so much that, but you know, the wiping down surface, even though later it was discovered that was not that important, it's more like transmission through the breath. And so, but there was a time when you didn't know, so the diocese required that we always wipe down surfaces before another group would come in. So it required a lot of work and a lot of volunteers and a lot of materials, you know. So it was a tough time. Thank be to God, we never had to lay off anyone.
Oh, good.
You know, the government had some assistance for payroll, for organizations that, or I guess corporations too, that continue to keep their employees employed. They would actually support the payroll. That happened, you know, for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months or something like that. They would support. So that was very helpful.
Oh, that's good.
I forget how many, but it was several months. And yeah, without that, I don't think we could have made it. But that kept us, and I'm sure many small businesses afloat. If not, you couldn't make it, you know. No, many small businesses around here, restaurants and all, were all closed.
Everything's closed. It's sad.
They've gone under, yeah.
They haven't been able to stay afloat. So I mean, I'm hoping that with the opening up and having the new birth, the rebirth, maybe we'll go through a second, you know,
Right.
a second hope that gets people out and interact and able to just be able to get involved. So it's amazing. Is there any way you could let us know, like mass services? I'm going to leave the website so that anybody needs, but when are your mass services?
On Sunday we have a what's called an anticipated mass, which is common in the Catholic Church, which is Saturday night.
Okay.
It's at 6 p.m. Saturday.
Okay.
And then on Sunday it's 8, 10, and 12. They're all in Spanish. The 10 o'clock is bilingual.
The 10 o'clock is bilingual.
That was focused more on the children that are in First Communion, for religious ed, the younger kids. The 12 o'clock mass is probably the most attended mass, and it also includes the teenagers that are in confirmation program. So they participate and they also serve in the mass with different things, but they're there every Sunday, and their parents also have to come too.
I bet it's amazing to be able to fill the church again.
Yes, as much as you can.
I bet it's like an overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like,
it's good. Yeah, now we've gotten used to it now again. But there was a time when back to COVID, will be after the 10 people only. Then there was a time when the diocese said, okay, you can go to 25% and keep a distance so much. So we actually had a lot of the pews roped off. You know, you can sit on this one, but the next two no, and the next one yes, and the next two no, because you didn't want people like, you know, right behind you coughing or whatever.
right.
And it's just at that time there was just more care, especially before the vaccines. So we went through the stage 2 of 25% and then 50% capacity, and keeping people sitting like, you know, 6 feet apart, and 2 pews roped off in the back. So it was very, it was like you had people sitting here, and that happened in many places. I mean, in many churches. But we went through that as well.
Well, I greatly appreciate your time. If anybody has any extra funds that please help Sacred Heart Church. Father Garcia, thank you so much for letting us know about this wonderful little place. Actually, little. This is a nice church. It's a large church. It takes up an entire city block. But for what you've done to the community and the hope that you bring and just the amount of education that is offered, I thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I keep you in my prayers just as you keep me in your prayers, and just, you know, even though we're different religions, it's all about exactly. It is all about, you know, making sure that we share the prayers and just keep the hope going. So
yeah, we have to find common ground rather than differences.
thank you.
That's very important in the world today.
Absolutely.
There's so much chaos and violence in the world is because people are fighting over differences rather than say, yeah,
let's hold hands and work this together. We're in the mud. Let's take care of it. Let's all get together and work at it together, because, you know, when it comes to being able to share the community and be able to spread the word and be able to, you know, enlighten people about education and him. You know, there is other ways. It's always keep the hope. So
well, thanks for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate that you also found time to interview me, and I hope that this does some good in some way.
oh yes, thank you.
Okay.